Could you, oops. For all speakers who just arrived, could you please rename yourself to speaker number, vertical line, and then your name?
All right, so I think we are going to start now. So welcome everyone to the Speakers Got Talent. Here we have wonderful coaches who evaluate our speeches to take our speeches to the next level and give a great value to it. So first, I would just like to quickly let us know the role bearers. We have Lena as timer role. We have Toastmaster Den as tech person. We have 7 wonderful speakers. And we have 3 amazing coaches today. Coach number 1 is Evelyn Lee. She has competed and placed at several humorous speech competitions and evaluation contests. And her favorite win, I think, was for a tall tale contest. So please welcome our coach first, Evelyn Lee. We have second coach, Arnie Bus, a distinguished Toastmaster, and there's been the semi-finalist of the World Championship. Please welcome our coach number 2. Yeah. Now we have wonderful coach Tatiana with us. She has been in Toastmasters for 10 years and she's serving in club, area, and division leadership roles. She is an accomplished speaker and evaluator. Please welcome our third coach, Tatiana. All right, so the first, let's start with the wonderful speakers we have today. The first speaker will be attempting level 2 project for international speech context practice from presentation mastery. Brian, my son's resurrection. My son's resurrection, Brian.
It was as if my son had come back to life. It was late that night already. I'd already put on my pajamas. My wife and I had already brushed our teeth. We turned out the light and kissed each other goodnight. We were done. When all of a sudden, the phone rang. Now we have taught our friends, we have told our parents, don't call us at night. We're not going to pick up. Don't even call us at after 8, because we're just going to send it to voicemail. And so that's what I told my wife. I said, oh, honey, just let it go to voicemail. But something was different that night. Whether fate or favor, my wife, the one who usually tells me to let it go to voicemail, decided that she was going to go and pick it up. And when she came back, the words that she told me changed my world. It was Matthew. The police had rescued him. The county had taken him back into custody, and they had called us to come and pick him up. My wife and I were foster parents. Normal parenting is hard enough. Normal parenting, it's like paddling a rowboat upstream, constantly fighting against the current. But foster parenting, foster parenting, that's like floating downstream in a barrel. There's no steering, there's no control. You're just bobbing up and down, trying to stay afloat, trying to keep your balance and avoid from falling in. And all the while, the sound of the oncoming waterfall getting louder and louder and louder until you go over. Matthew had been only 2 weeks old when we picked him up from the hospital, straight out of the NICU. But it's a strange thing to take home a child that is not yours. I didn't know this baby. I didn't love this baby. And honestly, I didn't even like babies that much. But my foster parent classes had impressed upon me that these children, even just babies, need to be loved. So I went through the motions with him. And with every bottle that I fed him, every diaper that I changed, every late night lullaby soothing him back to sleep, every tickle and cuddle, hug and snuggle, I fell in love with him. Oh, I fell so hard too. I'm such a softie. When he was 6 months old, the grabbing began. Now, my wife had been clear with him, Matthew, no grabbing Dana's glasses. But with me, it became a game that we would play. He would grab my glasses and the game would begin. My glasses, my glasses, where's my glasses? I can't see without my glasses. Do you know where my glasses are? And with a mischievous grin, he would do his best to hide my glasses behind his back. I would find them and I'd say, oh, there they are. There's my glass. Hey, wait a minute. And I would trace my finger down his arm. Wait a minute. You took my glasses. Give me back those glasses, you. And I would tickle him and he would fall into me with a hug, laughing the whole time. We played that game for 12 more months until, because Matthew's social worker changed 2 times at critical junctures in his case. Because we live in a county that prioritizes avoiding lawsuits over the best interests of the child. And because of a master manipulator, a narcissistic deceiver who didn't mind, had no qualms about lying to the social worker, lying to the court. Because of those things, the judge decided to send my son, my boy, to go live with the woman who gave birth to him for the first time in his life. The day I dropped him off was the saddest day of my life. And I cried myself to sleep that night. And I cried myself to sleep for weeks afterwards because I knew I would never, ever see my son again. And it was as if he had died. But with that phone call, my son had resurrected. As we drove to pick him up that night, I wondered, what's he going to be like? Is he going to be the same fun, awesome Mr. Cute that I loved? Would he even remember us? He had lived with us the first 18 months of his life. It had been over 5 months since he had even seen our faces. On that first day we had him back, it was clear he was the same guy, except it was as if he had witnessed a terrible war. We would lead him around the house and we would show him things trying to spark his memory. Matthew, do you remember your playhouse? Mafu's house? Do you remember Mafu's house? Nothing in his eyes. Matthew, Chico, Cheap Chico, your favorite guy. Surely you remember Chico. Could be any levy to him. I felt silly. I felt stupid. No one remembers anything from when they're 1 year old. But you know what? I didn't care. I didn't care because he who had been dead was alive again. And so on the third day, I stood in the kitchen holding him, just enjoying seeing my boy alive again here with me. When all of a sudden, he grabs my glasses and the game begins by reflex. My glasses, where's my glasses? And I traced my finger down his arm. You took my glasses. And as he collapsed into me, his face beaming like the sun, his sonorous laughter filling the air, he takes my glasses in his little hand and he raises his little arm high and he declares, I remember. My son was home and he knew it. Thank you, my fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Brian, for the amazing speech. Now, I would like to request our wonderful coaches.
So do you want us to just go ahead and start sharing information? Is that how your process works here? Okay, I will begin as coach one. Brian, very powerful speech, a lot of emotion captured within it. You had great gestures throughout, not only the baby, but your expressions in your face, how you felt about your son. I liked in the introduction that you begin with, you got the call, it was like my son had come back to life. Right away, it captured my attention. Wow, what happened? What is, I was intrigued, totally, wanted to know what happened. One thing you can play with a little bit with pacing was just at the very beginning, when you're talking about, oh, and we were just going to bed, it was too fast. So it would contrast well with the phone call, which would be more intense and fast. If you could say, we were very sleepy. It's all the right words, just slow it down like you really are tired, which can be tough at the beginning of a speech because you're feeling nervous, but you can do it. And it will contrast very well if you increase the pace when you get that phone call. Gestures, the bobbing, the patting. Oh, when you talked about what it was like to be a foster parent. Love that comparison to out of control, just bobbing along on the water, falling over the waterfall. One question I had, you took on this baby and you weren't even sure you liked babies. So I wanted to know, why were you even doing this? If you could have one sentence, what was the pull towards being a foster parent? Otherwise, I almost worry for the baby initially, like, well, he doesn't even like the kid. Maybe the problem is him, which was not true later on. Your emotion, the connection with the baby, where are my glasses? Playing that little game, that made me smile, and I was leaning in, listening. So then it was super powerful right after that cute interaction to have the child taken away from you. Oh my gosh. Oh, I felt it. The one other question I would say is, when the baby or the child comes back to you, you're leading him around, you said, and showing him, do you recognize this? Do you recognize that? And then you said, and then I was holding my son. I thought, wait, I thought he was a toddler, or I thought he was old enough to walk around. So I got confused. Is he a tiny baby still? But isn't multiple months have passed? So I was a bit confused with that near the end. And then in the conclusion, I was quite satisfied, and yay! I hope that you can hang on to him. Thank you very much for sharing that speech.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Should I go ahead? Melanie? Okay, here I am. Brian, it's the third time I am hearing your speech, and it was as moving and it went into my heart just as it was first time around. Thank you so much. You great storyteller, very sincere and very talented one. I have a few suggestions on how you may want to try and do it differently next time you give the speech. You have very powerful gestures. My suggestion is to pick up those which are certainly contribute to your speech and drop those which are not, because I think they create some sort of background noise, and more important one would stand out more. For example, I really loved how you said tickled, hugging. I want to hear it for the first time so I can write it down. I really loved it. But maybe drop bottle and diaper before that. I mean, not the telling, but the gestures showing. And the same discounting would happen that night. It was a little bit like as if you were talking with your hands, as opposed to be effective in the hand gestures. And this is the third time I've heard, and it's maybe my problem. It probably is my problem. That's the first time I understood that why you got this call. The word custody meant something else to me in the beginning. I don't know why. Maybe you need to explain a little bit more or change it somehow that it's clear. Maybe tell us how old Matthew was when they called you right from the beginning. I really appreciated what you explained to us how foster parents feel. I've never thought about it, so it was really important. I'm sort of dragging my feet. I don't know if I should say it or not. I really appreciated how sincere it was, very effective when you talked with anger after the court. For me, crying was a little bit too much. It's not about you being insincere in any way. It's about thinking of audience. Everybody else may think it was very effective, so just take it with a huge grain of salt. It's just my impression. I just thought about maybe there is a woman in the audience whose child has died and will never be resurrected in this life. So just this kind of thing. And finally, a message. Do you have a message to your audience? Thank you so much. I think I enjoyed the glasses so much. I want to hear it again. And good luck, and I wish you all the best with Matthew. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. Andy.
Okay, yeah, a very powerful emotion in the speech, and that always makes for a very impactful one. The opening was very intriguing, but I want to piggyback a little bit on a concept that Tatiana was talking about, which is having a clear message and basically cutting everything out of the speech that does not contribute to that goal of the speech. And I, as wonderful as they were, there were a lot, as wonderful as many of the pieces were, I think many of them did not help in the emotional core of your message. So just for me, it took a while to understand exactly what the scene was, so you were in bed with your wife and the phone call, and then there was a lot of and there was a kid, but what was it? Was it a teenager who was kind of picked up on something what I didn't know, and that lack of knowing made it difficult to kind of hone in on what the message is. So my first suggestion is make sure that you set the scene more clearly in the beginning about exactly what it is you're talking about and exactly what the conflict is. Again, your gestures were effective, and when they did, make sure that they contribute to the message, because I think whatever that is. Well, I thought your voice was particularly effective, and when you said changed my world, I mean that wow, that was very impactful. One thing, let's see. Okay, you had this very emotional scene where you're crying. It looked really genuine, and it looked like you were really overcome with emotion in that moment. And I don't know if you were, but if it looked like you weren't, and when you came out of it, that was you went too deeply into that, because I kind of felt like Billy Crystal in that scene from When Harry Met Sally. It was like, oh, it looked like a real emotion, but he was really faking it in this moment. So if you're going to go that deeply, make sure that it's real. And if it's not real, don't go quite that deeply. I love the tap back on the glasses. I mean, again, setting that up. I think I would suggest you cut back a little bit on the details of the other thing, like to only focus on the details that are critical to the message. So the details about the glasses was important because that was being tapped back to, but some of the other ones didn't. Again, the criterion for me is, does it contribute to the message? And if it doesn't, then it distracts from it. But powerful story, powerful message for the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arnie. All right. The second speaker will be attempting level 5 DTM project 1. Shine as an area director. Jamur, shine as an area director.
Thank you. Shine as an area director and rise above yourself. Now, how many of you don't know about the area director role? Wow, I see a couple of hands. Yes, I was just like you. I joined Toastmasters in 2016, and I didn't know about area director role until 2021. So that just shows that there is lack of awareness about this role. So my DTM project is about bringing awareness about the area director role. So what is an area director role? Anybody who knows about it, can you just shout it out? What is an area director role? I'm looking for answers. What is an area director role?
Manage 5 to 6 clubs and help them grow.
Absolutely, that's right. Area director role is the first step of district leadership. And every year, the district is looking for candidates to fill the area director slots. Now, guess how many slots are there in District 101? Wild guess?
20.
Sorry?
20.
20?
34.
34? Yes, there is more than 30. Last year, it was 33. And with the new alignment, it's going to be 32. Yes, we need 32 people, more than 30 people to fill the area director role. And most of the time, we don't know what is involved in it, or how do I prepare to become one. And as I researched, I found out that you can become an area director after you have completed 2 levels of your pathways and you have a club officer experience. And then the best part is you can nominate yourself. So if you go look in the district website, there is an application form and you can fill it out and email it to DLC email address. But since all these informations were not that easily available, I thought of taking action. So let me share my screen so you can better understand. do I have shares? Oh yeah, I have share screen access. Can you give me share screen access, please? Can I get share screen access? Oh, I do have. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that. I should have checked it earlier. Okay, so let's go. Let me talk about the Toastmasters hierarchy. You, as a member, is supported by the organization. And then comes the club. The club is there to support all its members. And then comes the area. Area is led by the area director and has about 4 to 6 clubs, like Doris said. And then comes the division. Division is led by the division directors. So this year, I had the opportunity to serve as a division director. And then comes the district. District is led by the executive team along with the district director. And then you have the region, which is led by the regional advisors and international presidents. And then comes the Toastmasters International, which is there to make you a better speaker and leader. So my focus is on area director. And this is where I was talking about that we need more than 30 people to fill this role. So what did I do as my DTM project? As my DTM project, it was all about bringing awareness about this role. How did I bring awareness about this role? So when I looked in District 101, there was no easy way to find about the area director. What is it needed? So I created the area director corner and I asked a couple of people, the past area directors, to put in their testimonials and also worked with a lot of people to share with us what is the minimum requirements so that any people who are aspiring to become area director know well in advance what it takes and they are ready and prepared. As well as have a panel discussion with past area directors. So I have a leg up in understanding what it takes. And this helps because now anyone, all of us can look out for potential and see who can step up as an area director. So my DTM project involved all these aspects, and I have successfully completed all these. So I want to ask you, why do many leaders value the area director experience? Any answers? Why do many leaders value the area director experience? Yes, go ahead, Tatiana.
As an area director, I've met so many different people I would never met otherwise. I was visiting clubs. I got to know a lot of people, and I learned a lot about resolving conflict.
Yes, resolving conflict. And resolving conflict, you get a playground to practice resolving conflict, a safe, supportive environment, and Toastmasters is the place. And resolving conflict is inevitable, and it happens in our personal and professional lives. So becoming an area director helps us to hone that skill. Such.
I think one of the reasons that I believe it is important is because you get to motivate different clubs, and different clubs come up with their own personalities, right? So it's a challenge in itself that how are you going to motivate someone who is at the beginning versus how are you going to motivate someone who is a veteran speaker?
Absolutely right. You get to, it's called MBA at work. You are actually doing MBA here and you also get an experience as a program manager. You have 4 to 6 projects. They all have the same goal, that is to complete the pathways, help the members. But the problem, like you said, is they all come with different personalities. And as you know, that Toastmasters organization, we are not paid, we are volunteers. So how do we develop that skill to frame the question, come up with a solution. So it is called influencing skills. How do I create that safe space for them to try out something, and at the same time, help the members with their goals, the clubs with their goals, as well as the district. So where else can I get that better platform to influence people by leading through examples? And another thing is I get to hone in on servant leadership qualities. And this is only possible when I become an area director, because I get to have a plan, and at the same time, I'm able to be the resource person and help the clubs grow. Any other reason?
To learn more management skills, and also helping others as well as helping ourselves to grow and expanding our horizons in skills, in experience, and knowing more people, networking, and many, many more benefits that we can think of. Learn a lot of competencies.
Absolutely correct. Management skills. Most of us start off as an individual contributor at work, but we don't have the experience we don't have a playground to learn how to expand our role. Where can I get the leadership skills from? So that is why becoming an area director will help us. And many people who have become area director, I have seen how it has influenced or changed their lives. They have got into management roles. And also they know how to deal with the people around them well now. And like you said, it is fun because now you are participating outside your club and also having fun outside your 4 levels of your club. And you get to become the go-to person. There is networking. And as a result, you get to be in this group of people where things are getting done in a very compassionate way. Now I'm going to ask Saloni. Saloni, I know you didn't hear about area director role. Tell me about what do you think is the value you will get if you become an area director one day?
So I think we get to know, as you said already, the management qualities, how to be a good leader, how to manage people that are coming from different perception, and taking all them together to the same path. It's so different. So these qualities we get to know, we get to learn, being in this area director role, since we get to experience this, how to manage. So it will be useful for us in our corporate jobs or in our business, everywhere. It helps us in our life also. So like
Yes,
that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. And so everything what you said is all the benefits of being an area director. You learn a lot of things. And one thing I want to leave you with is leadership is an action, not a position. So take up this opportunity to become an area director, shine as an area director, and rise above yourself. Back to you.
Thanks, Taylor. And now I would like to call on coaches for their evaluations. Evelyn.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Great job, Jimal. I enjoyed right away your clear presence on the screen. You were animated, you were encouraging. You also, at the beginning of your speech, had a very clear setup. You're going to be talking about the area director role. So I knew, oh, okay, this is what she's going to talk about. And right away, there was a bit of an issue where you said, okay, anyone know what an area director is? And then the problem is, in this format, people are like, but if it's being recorded, am I supposed to speak up? Oh, do I chat? So very easy fix would just be, I'm going to ask you, who knows what an area director is? You can either send it in a chat or go ahead and raise your hand or just speak up. I want to hear what you have to say. That gives people a chance to think about it and say, okay, now I know I can talk. So quick and easy fix. I know you can do that. You also, I wanted to know, when you were beginning to show the slides, you had the area director, first you have the club, then you have the area, then you have the division. That's great for people who have a lot of experience, but for newer members, what does that mean? So the area would include whatever the major cities are in your area. Division is this area, and district is, so now I know what you're talking about. And also you give people a sense of, wow, we're that big? I had no idea, which is when the first time I learned about it, that's how I felt. You said, let's see. I wanted to know, why did you want to be an area director? I know that this is a challenge, but if you could have let us know, I was intrigued. It sounded interesting. I thought it might help me back on the job, that kind of thing. That would help me feel the personal attachment to the role. Let's see, then you started, people were responding, and you changed it up at the very end, just when my energy was starting to flag. And by doing that change up and selecting Solani, or anybody, if you were doing this somewhere else, that was something different. And I went, oh, so I was listening again. That was very good. I also appreciated that after each person spoke, you showed that you were a very good listener. Not only did you acknowledge what they said, but then you built on it. That was very effective. And the conclusion felt a little too, and that's the end, I'm out of time. Sorry. So if you give yourself a little more time to say, I know you guys, we need area directors, and each of you have the talents and the skill, whatever. You have the words, you have the energy. I think you are almost there. You definitely have the presence. So I look forward to if you do another presentation. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thanks, Evelyn. Tatiana.
Thank you, Jimo. I enjoyed your speech. You're talented, very animated speaker. I learned a lot from you. You have this eye contact. Sometimes you look directly into my eyes. Sometimes I felt you look to the audience, and it was very natural. Thanks a lot for this demonstration. A few things which to add to what Evelyn already said. I actually, with this scheme, with the member area, club area, I felt that people who are ready to be area directors, they don't need this introduction at all. People who are not ready, it's not enough. So maybe not use it at all. So I would want to hear in the very beginning from you something very personal, not only what you learn as an area director, but why you invite us to be area directors. I just remember Carl Thurmeyer told me, and I apologize, it's not very suitable, I think, polite way to think, said it, but it's very true. As an area director, you will work your butt out, but you will enjoy it. So it was something very personal about your experience. I also felt that your speech was like sections, great sections, but I didn't see the roadmap. I didn't know where you're going. I enjoyed each part, but for me, there was no like coherent flow through it. I didn't know where you're going. I would like to hear something bad about being area director. Bad in terms of challenge, like what it is, what the struggle was for you, and why you think it was worth it. And finally, with the organization, I like the quote at the end. I have no idea, and again, it may be my fault, who Donald McGannon is. And I think it's either needs to be, it's a great quote. We add the name to it, not only to credit someone, but also to add credibility to the quote. Why I should listen to him? What's so important? So that's I really enjoyed your speech. I think it has a potential for much longer speech. Maybe this is the problem. You have much more to it. Maybe it's a panel discussion, as you said. And I'm looking for, if you give it as a panel discussion or some sort of longer speech, make sure to invite me. Thank you. Please. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tatiana. Coach Arden.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for, as a erstwhile, well, back in my day, they called them area something else, governors, whatever, keep changing the name. Okay, I think a lot of the positive aspects of this have been covered, so I'm kind of going to be a Simon Cowell about it. And this is my mantra. Every speech has a general purpose. Is it to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or to inspire? And I wasn't clear about what the purpose of this was. I believe the purpose was to persuade the members of the audience to become area directors. And if that's the case, then just as I was sharing in the first speech, anything which doesn't contribute to convincing the audience member to become an area director needs to be cut out from the speech. In particular, that the slides didn't contribute anything because that was information. And so information usually doesn't persuade. What persuades? Personal stories, as Evelyn was saying. You know, why did you do it? That's going to persuade me, or I think most people, more than information. Information doesn't persuade anybody. The problem with asking questions is that you lose control of the speech. Now, in other words, if there are specific things that you're trying to accomplish in the goal of the speech, and you leave it open, then you don't know where it's going to go. So if you're going to do that in a speech like this, plant a stooge who's going to ask a question that's going to lead to your next point. And you kind of did that, but for every part of this, does this section and what I'm about to say help persuade an audience member to decide to become an area director? And if the answer is no, then do something else. You know, there were some great, for example, so I think servant leadership is sort of a key kind of thing. You threw that statement out, most people aren't going to know what that is. So unless you're going to explain what servant leadership is and why it's important for being an area director, then it doesn't really kind of belong there. So again, I would start with when you didn't know what an area director was and you heard about it and why you were persuaded, and that would I think persuade most people, because if they don't know what an area director is and then they hear your personal story, that would persuade them much more. Again, anything which is informational should only come on top of a kind of emotional connection, if that makes any sense. You know, that's information by itself doesn't persuade anybody. Information on top of an emotional connection may. So, and you know, you're a wonderful speaker. You're so engaging, and I mean, I felt your warmth, and I mean, I loved hearing the speech. But to achieve your purpose, I would suggest kind of just really honing in on that. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. This is amazing, insightful, and definitely I'll apply it and give it the next time.
Thank you, Arnie. The third speaker will be attempting level 3 project Connect with Storytelling from Engaging Humor Pathway. Jane, an outrageous proposal. An outrageous proposal, Jane Kenny.
You're speaking on mute.
Thank you. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, have you ever had those moments when you are so exhausted, you can't even see straight, you can't even think straight? That is the state that I was in when my professor called me over. She said, "Jane, honey, I all would like to talk to you. I've noticed how tired you are, and I'm really concerned about your well-being. And honey, I'd like to give you a little advice, if I may. I'd like to suggest that you take a do-nothing day. A do-nothing day? Honey, it's what I did when I was in school and I found myself in this state. I would just take one day a week. I declare my do-nothing day. I would go to bed. I'd take the Sunday New York Times. I'd take maybe a cup of tea, and I would just sleep, read the Times, drink a little tea. But I would renew, restore, and refresh myself. And honey, that's what you need to do. It really sounded delicious and impossible, outrageous. How could I take a whole day and do nothing? I am the mother of 5 children. I have a husband. I'm a full-time student. And yes, I was exhausted. Oh well, what have I got to lose? I go home. Hey, Bob, I'd like to talk to you for a minute. What's that, hon? Well, you'll never believe what my professor suggested I do today. She suggested I take a whole day and I do nothing except renew, restore, and refresh myself. Isn't that outrageous? Hon, I think it might be a good idea. How about if we declare Sunday your do-nothing day? I'll make breakfast, I'll serve you in bed, and you can have the whole day to yourself. I'll take care of the kids in the house. Really? Really, hon? Do it. That was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Sunday came, and I lifted the New York Times onto my bed. And as I was slithering down underneath the covers, my eye caught a line in the New York Times. And the next thing I knew, I was reaching for a pad and a pen. Oozing out of me was a poem. As a full-time student, I had a full-time assignment, and my full-time assignment was to write a poem. For an English class, oh, no, that would be too reasonable. For a filmmaking class, who ever heard of such an outrageous thing of having to write a poem for a filmmaking class? I know I cannot write poetry. I can't, and you can't make me, and no. And don't you dare fail me. I have young children, and I have to be a role model. All that ranting, raving, and railing was to no avail. Yet, oozing out of me was this poem. Believe it or not, it was the best poem in the class. I was stunned. My professor was stunned. My classmates were stunned. What I learned from this experience of taking a do-nothing day, from this outrageous proposal, was that Socrates said we have all the answers inside of us. And if we take the time to just be quiet, take time to renew, restore, and refresh ourselves, the answers will flow through us. And as the answers flow through us, our creativity and our productivity also increases. I then went into the work world. And in the work world, I discovered do-nothing moments. You know those moments when you get stopped? No one's returning your phone calls. You can't reach anyone on the phone. No one's responding to the emails. And you're just stopped, dead in the water. In fact, this happened to me as I was preparing for the area contest. I had a full-blown panic attack because I couldn't remember anything. And I was terrified that I was going to stand there for 5 to 7 minutes with nothing to say and stare like a deer in the headlights. Then the little voice in my head whispered through all of that racket going on, Jane, follow your own advice. And I took a walk around my building. And when I realized how ungrounded my fear was, and I had to laugh at myself. Come on, Jane, you're Irish. You'll always have something to say. It comes with the territory. Again, as I said, I invite each and every one of you, take the time, if not a huge chunk of time, start out small with just some do nothing moments and expand it into do nothing hours and then into maybe a do nothing day. Beware though, that to-do list, you know, the one that's pulling you now and saying you should be doing this and not here in this meeting, that one will always be calling you, but you have the power to say no. Take the time, follow the outrageous proposal, be outrageous with yourself and renew, restore, and refresh yourself. Madam Toastmaster.
Thanks, Jane, for the amazing speech. Requesting coaches for their evaluations. Evelyn.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and Jane. An outrageous proposal. Actually, it was a very good proposal. I can truly see the success of it. You began your speech with the classic question, how many of you have ever felt totally exhausted? I would like right away to encourage you to begin. How many of you are frazzled? You just running around through your day, can't because your answer to it is in response to that. It's not how many of you are tired, it's how many of you need to slow down, quiet yourselves. So I would encourage you to just change the question to something where you're asking people how are they handling hectic days. I appreciated that your instructor, you gave her a different voice, a Southern accent. The only thing I would encourage you to be careful about is that your voice was great, but you just held your hands up. So just keep your hands away from the camera, keep them down. The voice was fine. And I really liked that she introduced a do nothing day. And I just thought, wow. In fact, you even mentioned at one point, it was delicious, the whole thought. It was. I liked it. One day I should try it. Going back to the voices, you had a different voice kind of for your husband. You tried to lower your voice. What happened was the pace was exactly the same as your own. So because it wasn't really low, I would encourage you when you're being your husband, even if he's not really this way, it helps me, the audience, slow your husband down because you're the one who's hectic and feeling frazzled. Let him be kind of the voice of reason or the one who's helping to support you. I think that would help just playing with the pace. The other time where I really like the message of slowing down. So you decide on the weekend, you're going to be in bed, you're relaxing, you're looking at the New York Times, and suddenly a poem came to you. All of that was wonderful. But then you suddenly went into this whole thing about, and can you believe it? It was because of an assignment from my film school, and we completely lost me on the relaxation part. So I think you need to take that explanation of the assignment from the school before you get into bed and relax. So I want to see that contrast. Before everything's frazzled and hectic, then show me the power of when I'm in bed and it's relaxed, thoughts come to me, creativity comes to me. Be careful not to break that. At the end, when you're encouraging everybody else to give it a try, then your pace can increase again. But I think the message is super good. Just be careful not to break it by breaking the peace with hecticness. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thanks, Evelyn. Tatiana.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jane. I was looking for, when I saw you, I was looking forward to hearing your speech again. I tried to hear it, listen to it as if I haven't heard it before. So completely new feedback. I really like your speech. I agree with in many things with Evelyn. And here is a few things I can add to it. I felt that what your professor told you, and I know professor probably tend to talk in such long set of sentences, I felt it was too long. It was just a single message, right? To stop and take a day off. But it was like a few sentences. So maybe cut it back a little bit and add what Evelyn suggested, all this turmoil in the very beginning instead, before even professor talked to you about it. I also felt that your day, I would want to see it more linear, like the problem and then resolution. So instead of going back and forth, which usually adds to the story, but not necessarily in this case. You talked about, so you had this big part about this, your first experience, which was great. Then you went into the workforce and it was very short. There was no example except just narrative. And then you went to the area contest. So I think for the interest of time, even though we tend to speak in threes, you can drop the workforce part, maybe, if you don't have time to tell a story about it, and expand maybe on the area contest part. And I love your, very much like your humor. I still want to hear at least a few lines from your poem, if possible, which was the best in the class. And something to maybe consider. I think renew, restore, and refresh is your message, not that proposal was outrageous. So maybe change your title to concentrate on the message as opposed to what the professor suggested. So think about it. I may be wrong, but this is what I felt. Thank you so much. And back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. Arnie.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, for a wonderful message. And I guess as a professor, I'm going to have to perfect my Southern accent a little more. I'm going to be more persuasive. But yeah, the triad refrain of renew, refresh, restore was wonderful. I think most of my notes have been covered, so I'm going to make an outrageous proposal. You told us in the beginning that you were frazzled. It's always more effective to show us you were frazzled. The most frazzled you were was when you were complaining about the poem for a filmmaking class. So my outrageous proposal is to start with that. In other words, you're frazzled because you have to write a poem for a filmmaking class. And then on top of that, I'm a mother of five, and et cetera. In other words, show us that frazzle, that tension. And then, I agree. In general, I love dialogue because it's always more effective. And I trim the dialogue. The same principle applies. If something in the dialogue doesn't contribute to what you're trying to get across, then trim it out. Set up the Irish stuff first. So it's like, okay, on the one, for example, okay, I got to write a poem. What do I do? Well, I'm Irish. I always have something to say, but how do I put it in other words, kind of set that up so that later in the contest, you can kind of tap back to the Irish thing. So if you set up the tension about the poem first, then when you're finding it in bed, then it can connect to that. And now, if from a movie perspective, you went from the bed to the best poem in the class in one cut. So I think you might want to have like a little bit more of a transition, and the fact that it was the best poem, I mean, I don't know how much that really adds, but kind of a fade or some kind of transition from the bed to the class, because that was very abrupt. But yeah, I mean, I love the speech. I love the message. You're such a wonderful speaker. I think this is going to do great. So thank you for that. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, every one of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you, coaches. The fourth speaker will be attempting level 3 from Dynamic Leadership Pathway, a practice speech practicing for a district level contest. On my way to LA, Sachdeo, on my way to LA.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Today's speech begins in the year 2020. The world was ravished with COVID. Nobody knew what was going on. I was holding on to as many toilet papers as I can, but I forgot to hold on to the most important thing in the world. This little guy here, food. Actually, I didn't even have this little guy back then. So I opened up my fridge, and when I couldn't find anything, I did the most Indian thing a man could do. I called my wife. And I asked her, hey, what should I eat today for lunch? Do you think that there's something at the home that I can make? And my wife said, oh, forget it. You just come to LA. They are giving us free food anyways here. So you come and eat here. I took out my car, started driving as fast as I could, almost reached 120 miles per hour before I ran into this fox, which was sitting on my path for some weird reason. His name was Tim. Tim the fox asked me the most important question, probably which was haunting all the animals in the jungle. Why are there so less of human beings on this particular highway? I told him, Tim, have you not heard about COVID-19? There's the COVID going around everywhere, and none of the human beings are trying to get outside on the streets. COVID, you said. Let me check with the animals back in the jungle. They were talking about something about COVID. He came back to me and led me into the small cave inside the jungle. There was a blue orb floating within that cave. Tim said, why don't you go touch that orb? Maybe it will lead us somewhere. I went ahead and grabbed the orb, and suddenly the orb got turned into a huge chunk of light which engulfed me everywhere. It transported me back to LA, and I woke up into the arms of my wife, who had a muffin in her hand and asked me the most important question, what are you doing here? And I said, I don't know. She said, why don't you look across the room? There are two gentlemen standing over there. I looked across the room, and I suddenly recognized Agent J and Agent K standing there from Men in Black. Agent J and Agent K asked me the most important question, which I wanted an answer of too. What are you doing here? I said, I don't know. They said, oh, forget that. But what were you doing back in the moon? I said, I still don't know. They answered that I was a moon when they went there and found me fighting against two alien species. They told me that moon has two types of aliens, red aliens, green aliens. Red aliens hate human beings. Green aliens, they are our guys. They are friends with us. In fact, these two aliens don't like each other as well. So always they are at war with each other. He told me that when the war was going on, they found me there for some weird reason. They said, why don't we go back to the moon and try to find out what is business with these aliens and stuff like that. A giant spaceship appeared suddenly in front of us. We got into the spaceship. Agent J snapped his fingers. I got into a spacesuit and we flew to moon. We engaged in the war against red aliens. We won, but at the same time, COVID wasn't cured yet. We wondered what is going on with this COVID business. They said maybe this COVID has something to do with this red goblins. But I wondered, hey, we just killed all the red goblins. Then who is left? Agent J had a very important point. He asked, what about that fox down there? What is going on with that guy? I have not heard about a talking fox ever. We came back to the earth, appeared in front of Tim the Fox. Tim the Fox suddenly turned into a giant red goblin. He took out his claws and started attacking me. And before he could attack me, Agent J took out his gun, shot at him, and the fox disappeared before saying the words, you measly humans, I will come back to haunt you and take my revenge. As he disappeared, a small serum fell down on the ground. Agent J collected the serum and he said, this looks interesting. Maybe you should try it out in the lab. We picked up the serum, sent it back to the Pfizer lab, and we discovered the Pfizer vaccine, gave it to the entire humanity and cured COVID-19. This is how, ladies and gentlemen, we save the world. Now, you might be wondering, why nobody, including the United States FBI, ever told me about this? You know why? Because we never told them. We wanted to keep it a secret until today so that I can win this contest. Now, since all of you guys know, please keep this in mind. And whenever you encounter a talking fox, you know who to call, the Foxbusters. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thanks, Such. That was an amazing speech. Thank you. Now, requesting coaches for their evaluations. Coach Evelyn.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and Sash. Okay, I'm going to confess right here. Oh, I was so confused, but I will try to share with you information that I got. It took me a while to finally realize, oh, is this a tall tale? Because I was assuming initially it was a true story about you. All right, I appreciated at the very beginning your joke that there was the only thing you were holding on to was all the TP, and I remember all of that. And then you were hungry, you couldn't find anything. So you called your wife, and I was thinking, what? Where is his wife? Why isn't she at home locked down with him? So that confused me. If you could explain, her place of employment hadn't sent her back home. I don't know, whatever the answer is. When you introduced the fox, if you could give him a very specific voice, and I assume you are reading this, so if I need some slowing down and then contrasting with speeding up, and otherwise it's just, I get lost. So one way is to give the fox a distinctive, later on it turns out he's bad, so make him slower, perhaps either a deeper voice, but slower, whatever, to give him more power. That would help in the story. Then it became very fantastical, and that's when I went, what's happening? There was a forest, and then there was an orb, and then suddenly after you cracked open the orb, you were in your wife's arms. So I went, wow, it's some kind of Freudian thing. And then you were introduced to agents J and K. Woo, all right, okay. Eventually, you came back to the fox. And turns out he was bad, a red goblin, and you said at some point he cursed humanity, and then he disappeared, leaving behind a red syrup. And the syrup, you took it back to the labs, and it became the vaccine that helped humanity. That confused me, because I was thinking, but if the fox is evil and wants to destroy humanity, would it have been wise to put that syrup into humanity? So I would play with that piece of it, especially something good leaves behind the syrup rather than the bad goblin. Or my encouragement would be, I like foxes. I wanted the fox to be good. So let him be a good alien or whatever, and then produces the syrup for you. All right, well, happy storytelling. Thank you for sharing that with me. Take care.
Thanks, Evelyn. Coach Tatiana.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it. I was looking forward to the ending to find out what actually was happening. A few suggestions. You have quite a few characters in your story. You have your wife, you have yourself, you have your wife, you have Fox, you have two agents, you have red and green aliens, and then you sort of reduce it by making the Tim the Fox the Red Goblin. I would suggest keep just 3. It's hard to take track of them. Maybe your wife can confess that she is actually an Agent G, and maybe the Fox will be Agent K. So just a few people or a few characters performing in your story. I also suggest that in addition to the voice, you can change the pace. As the events become more and more improbable, you can start talking faster or maybe louder at the same time, indicating that we're moving forward to the resolution of your story. But start completely normal, right? I noticed that at some point, I think the sentences were too long and you sort of lost air and your voice was very low, like as if you had no air. So make sure you chop your sentences in a way that you can continue talking slowly. You started with toilet paper, very effective. It certainly put me directly into that year, directly into that line where I wanted to buy the toilet paper. And you were talking about food. Is there a way to go back to it at the end? Think about food and think about what the toilet paper, what the role will play. It's just my feeling for a story. All characters and even a piano in the bushes should play a role. If you mention the toilet paper, maybe it was on the moon, and I don't know who stole them, the red aliens or the green aliens. Great story. I really loved it, and I wish you all the best in saving the world. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tatiana. Coach Arnie.
Yeah, thank you. It was certainly very entertaining. Sort of helped keep me guessing. I think most of my points have sort of been mentioned. Just a few things. Well, okay. First major suggestion: start by if the punchline about the COVID vaccine, maybe start off with something like, do you know how the COVID vaccine came to be? You may think you know, but let me, tell you. Overall, like in all the different scenarios, I didn't mind the different characters so much. My suggestion would be to create more tension before the resolution. So you're coming up like you encounter a fox. Oh my God, a fox, and then the fox starts to, a talking fox. Okay. In other words, create the tension, then resolve the tension. I was confused about were the red and green people aliens or goblins? So maybe stick to one. Pick, I don't care what they are. And then I like the idea of, coming back to the toilet paper at the end. And in fact, hold up, I don't have one with me, but hold up a roll of toilet paper and say, I got the toilet paper or something like that. But yeah, it was, a good tall tale is one where it starts off like, okay, that could be true. And then all of a sudden you're kind of caught up with things. So I like that part of it where the first part could very well be true. I like, I don't know if it contributed, but the most Indian thing to call my wife. I mean, I was, and well, now what were agents J and K doing in your wife's bedroom? I don't know. Seems pretty suspicious to me. Anyway, but there are a lot of things to play with. But for a tall tale, it's like, all bets are off. So amusing, creative. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some very good suggestions there. I have just noted them. Thank you.
Thanks, Arnie. Thank you, coaches. The fifth speaker will be attempting level 5 from Mastery Presentation Pathway, a contest speech project. Wendy Fenn, Journey to the Stars. Journey to the Stars, Wendy Fenn.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Thank you, everyone, especially the coaches. Amazing. When I was a little girl, my horizon was full of dark clouds. My grandparents were small landlords. My parents were intellectuals. They were outcasts in the great cultural revolution. Their children had no chance to advance in society. My mom would often say, my daughter's best job is to sell veggies and pickled fish in the country store. Fortunately, the political tide turned My parents, like many of yours, saw hope in education. And they dreamed that I would go to college to become a scientist. I still remember the first day at school. I walked into a dark, bare room with mud floor. Kids sat on stools, shivering, snowflakes falling. I fell in love with learning. My mom often embarrassed me. You know that type of parents. She waved my report cards in front of every house guest, smiling from ear to ear. In high school, I competed in the national math contest. I was straight A student, but I couldn't solve half of the problems. One day I came home. Mom's head was drooping. She looked disappointed and embarrassed because I didn't even place in the contest. To my surprise, Mom smiled. Her voice was gentle and loving. Wendy, it's okay. Just try harder next time. Don't give up. I know you'll win it. Huge burden was lifted from me. I learned it's okay to fail. Soon, I tried harder and got back to top of my class. Throughout our lives, we struggle to reach stars. But the secret is not to let fear to stop you. Just get back up, try harder. I got into top college. I was just average. But I remembered what my mom taught me. I could reach the top if I kept trying. Mom passed while I was in college, but her words and dreams stayed alive with me. I set my eyes to pursue graduate study in the US, a mission impossible. The language exam cost $30, which was 2 months' salary. I borrowed the $30 knowing I had only one shot. So I studied as hard as I could, so I ranked in the 99th percentile. Against all odds, I got my passport and visa. You might struggle for money, but don't let it limit you. Use it to spur you to excel. In the US, I got my master's degree and worked in the pharmaceutical company. I loved the research, but I needed a PhD. Should I take a risk to go back to grad school again? The secret is, the more you practice, try harder, don't give up, the more confident you become, the bigger your appetite for challenges. So I quit, went to Stanford. Then I worked at NASA Ames. In my late 30s, I was still a no-name chemist, but I believed I could reach the top if I kept trying. Work became fun. One morning, I rushed to work. As I was mixing chemicals, I got a phone call. Wendy, where are you? Aren't we supposed to carpool today? My husband. I totally forgot, left him at home. My hard work paid off. SpaceX recruited me. SpaceX hustled and bustled for flight development, but I worked on side projects. So I thought I made a mistake. I was a misfit. Most engineers were male and half my age. What's worse, I seemed to be daydreaming with my head in the clouds. Once, without looking, bam, I walked into a raised forklift. I woke up in a hospital bed, have long stitches on my head. Tears would stream down my face. I really wanted to quit. you may have been there. Late one night, I heard a gentle voice. Wendy, don't give up. You've come a long way. Just try harder. I jumped out of bed, wrote my manager, asking to be put on a flight project. The next day, I got the project. In 6 months, I helped the company to create a new material that would protect the Falcon rocket to re-enter the atmosphere unblemished. For the first time, a rocket could land and take off like an airplane. No refurbishment. I've reached a shiny star. I would go on to reach more brighter stars. I helped to create the Crew Dragon heat shield so US could bypass the Russia to send astronauts to space and return them safely. Fellow travelers, my journey from a countryside girl to a rocket scientist was filled with challenges of being average, poverty, and misfit. Look, the sky is strewn with diamonds. Are there challenges that are keeping you from reaching your stars? I encourage you to try hard. Don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, for sharing your inspirational journey. It's really motivating. Thanks for sharing that. Now, I would like to welcome our coaches for their evaluations. Coach Evelyn.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Thank you, Wendy. I truly enjoyed your enthusiasm, the story of you achieving your dream. And I liked from the beginning how you were silent and composed yourself, and then you spoke, because it really held my attention. However you did that, I was ready to listen to what you had to say. You indicated at the very beginning, my world was full of dark clouds, but you said it very fast. The tough thing at the beginning of a speech is usually our heart is racing and we tend to speak a little too fast. If you could make a note to yourself to slow that down when you say my world was full of dark clouds. Otherwise, it sounds a little too enthusiastic. Also, if you could droop your posture just to capture that feeling as well. Your descriptions were very vivid. I appreciated that. Lots of beautiful words. When you were talking about the school, when you went to school, how it was cold and bare, there was nothing there. And you told us, I fell in love with learning. What I needed to hear was, what was it about learning that you fell in love with? Because all I was picturing is it's cold, it's bare, so you like being really shivery and cold, and that helps you learn? No, I'm sure if you could have, just a few sentences, the way the teacher introduced the math and science, or I don't know, whatever, you know the words. If you could let me know, what is it about school that you really loved? Another time where I would like to encourage you to play with your pacing is when you entered a contest and you came home to your mother, but you said it as, I came home, oh, I had failed the contest. And then your mom encouraged you. So let's have some contrast there. I came home, I told my mom I'd failed, whatever your words are. Then when your mom is encouraging you to try harder, you can do it. That increased pace is the contrast to the depression earlier. And then me as an audience member, I feel buoyed up by that as well. I liked very much, as you practice and work harder, it gives you bigger appetite for a challenge. I found that true in my own life. You tell us that you went to SpaceX but you were stuck in side projects. It got a little, if you could make it a list. So you achieved getting hired by SpaceX, but you were blocked. How were you blocked? You were given side projects. one other thing, and even I ran into the forklift. So 3 things, give me a list. And then at the very end, you mentioned, I can't remember, you're telling us about the success of achieving the star, helping people get to the stars and space, which is wonderful. Did you ever mention it at the very beginning of your speech? Something about you looked up and you were so far away from those stars, or something to give us that connection back from the front. Beautiful story though. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Evelyn. Coach Tatiana.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It was such an inspiring speech, and at the same time, from such a modest person, from a rocket scientist. It's unbelievable, really. I wanted to be a cosmonaut, an astronaut when I was little. And here I see the person who was destined to sell veggies, right? That was the expectation, and become a rocket scientist. It's very inspiring. The story aside, just your life, very inspiring. I like how you weave nature into your speech. You were talking about dark clouds, and then somehow your head was in the clouds. You talked about stars. You talked about snowflakes, and it's added such charm to your speech. Thank you so much for making it so no dry, no rocket science. A few suggestions, what I think you may have done differently. I didn't expect you to address as a fellow travelers. There was nothing about travel throughout your speech explicitly. It was implied, right? You traveled to different countries, people fly to the stars, but I wasn't included in it. And I think if you think about your message at the end, you can decide if you want to introduce it earlier or just drop it for the speech. Maybe we are dreamers like you. I noticed in the beginning, I don't know if it was your nervousness, you clasped your hands in front of you, but then you changed it. You had a lot of wise messages, little sparkles throughout your speech. You were talking about not giving up to the failure, not letting fear to guide you, about the willingness to take a risk, to succeed against all odds, and then you sort of formulated this not giving up. I would think about just 3 or 4 words. Choose what exactly the message is. They all are correct, but for 5 to 7 minutes, it needs to be, I think, more focused. Not the speech itself, but the message you're giving throughout your speech and repeating. Overall, great speech. I really glad and grateful to be able to hear it. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, Coach Charlie.
Yes, and thank you for such an inspiring story again, to go from to a village to literally to space, or a rocket scientist. I actually, many of the positive points that I had noted have already been mentioned, so I'm going to go right to the Simon Cowell on you. One thing that I think is important is to actually, oddly enough, not be the hero of your story. And okay, what does that mean? It means that when you're the hero of your story, in my opinion, is your mother. And okay, so how to bring that in? So every time that you say try harder, bring that back to your, like, I remembered my mother's words when she told me to try harder. And so that's what, in other words, it was your mother that kept inspiring you to take that next step. And that makes her the hero of the story, really. And of course, it doesn't take away from everything you've achieved, but it makes it less preachy. In other words, when you're telling us that, it's like, okay, you're kind of lecturing to us, but you're saying, okay, I was inspired by my hero, the mother. Just a suggestion. And again, just some of the things that it's like, where did your husband come from? Kind of all of a sudden, your husband kind of pops up because you forgot him, but it was, wait a minute, there's a husband in there. And, a lot of my speeches have to do with relationships and marriage and things like that. And that's a challenge in itself. So that's a whole speech there, but it's like your husband didn't really, husbands don't matter. So cut him out and forget him. As for this speech, it doesn't really contribute to what your message is, which is, to when you're faced with adversity, don't give up, just kind of keep trying. And your story is a living testament to that. And again, the other thing is that there's this term, we haven't heard it lately, but tiger mom. So you could describe your mom as a tiger mom who wanted to kind of push you, but then she wasn't so much of a tiger mom when she was encouraging you. So just maybe a suggestion to kind of connect with what kind of mother she was in terms of spurring you on to be greater things, and yet not, and also being compassionate. But again, wonderful message. And your story is, you are an inspiration. So thank you for the speech.
Thanks, Ernie. Thank you, all the coaches. The sixth speaker will be attempting level 3, Project Effective Body Language from Motivational Strategies Pathway. And her speech is a tall tale to recreation. Doris, say, recreation.
I like to challenge everybody for everything. And I even dare to challenge God for his creation. Fellow Toastmasters and honorable coaches, 50 years ago, I made a long distance call to heaven. And I said to God, Your Highness, I know you created us human beings. And you have us live in a life that's ready for your program. Every day, we eat, we drink, and we discharge. But going to the bathroom several times a day is too time consuming. I think our life will be more efficient if we only need to go to the toilet once a month. God was stunned. And he said, So you think you are smarter than I? You should be enjoying the gift of life in recreation, but you rather want to work with my creation. All right, I will grant you permission for recreation. You may modify any of my creations. Thank you. Hallelujah. Immediately, I took out my golden Apple laptop and began typing with lightning speed. Zzz. I combined artificial intelligence with all the cyber technologies. In 5 minutes, I had developed an app that would allow me to edit God's original designs and programs. Without any delay, I'd call out the toilet program for human beings. And I changed the frequency of toilet visit to once a month. I executed the new program and testing started right away. On the first couple of days, there was no apparent change. People kept eating and drinking, but they did not need to go to the bathroom. Everybody was happy. Then on the third and fourth days, people noticed that their bodies were expanding, especially around their waistlines. They all have big bellies like pregnant women. But some people had discomfort, and they were crying to God because of constipation. And on the 5th and 6th days, everybody looked like Humpty Dumpty. Their bodies continue to expand like fully inflated balloons. Some people thought they might explode at any moment. People were desperate and they yelled out to God for help. Their groaning sounded like thunder that set off the heavenly alarm. Wow, wow, wow! When God saw all this in heaven, he had to sign off an urgent executive order to abort the new program. Thank God, people's body returned back to their original sizes. Everybody was happy again. Afterwards, God summoned me for a lecture. Hey, smart girl, do you still think that my creations were without careful consideration? You should not overestimate your IQ and underestimate mine. Your recreation program did not last even for 1 week. Lucky that I could stop it. No one on earth ever succeeded in challenging me and my creation. All human recreations are just big jokes. They should stick with recreation. Remember, tell your human friends, forget about recreation. Just recreation, no hyphen. Recreation, just recreation. Okay? Now go home.
Thank you, Doris, for amazing speech. I really enjoyed it and I hope we all enjoyed it as well. Now requesting all the coaches for their evaluations.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster Doris. This was a very amusing, enjoyable, tall tale, told very well. Right away, I appreciated your bright colors visually that captured my attention. And then the fact that early on you said you decided to give a call to challenge God himself. I thought, oh my. Then I thought, okay, what is she going to talk about? Something serious with God. What does she want to change? No, we go to the bathroom too many times. Let's make it just one time a month. Very amusing. And that you took it seriously, which made the story more important. And I wanted to hear what was going to be your solution. I appreciated that when you used a voice for God, you slowed it down and you made it deep. That was very good. Then you created an app. One issue when you said you now have created the app, everyone is only going to the bathroom, hopefully just one time a month. People are eating, you went, and drinking, that seemed like the same so with drinking, just put it back. Don't chew when you do the drinking motion. Otherwise, it seemed like the same motion. Your constipation expression, hilarious. Very, very good. I thought, wow, look at that, so creative when you pulled away and I could see a little bit of swelling in and then you were coming close to the camera. It wasn't afterwards till I thought, oh, I see she put a bigger ball inside and you were even more expanded. Very creative, enjoyable. Now it's time, it's a disaster. God summons you back. So you have a lot happening. It's super funny. The pace is great. Slow it way down because God is angry and he needs to correct you. So instead of come quickly, say, God summoned me. Slow that piece down. And then when he spoke, you did it very well. And I really liked at the end, recreation, not recreation. That was clever play on words. Thank you very much for sharing your tall tale. Very entertaining.
Thank you, Evelyn. Coach Tatiana.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Doris. You're certainly a very accomplished and entertaining speaker. I enjoyed watching and listening to your story. Thanks a lot. I have a few questions for you to think about and maybe a few suggestions. My biggest suggestion is just sharing what I usually do when I write a speech. I always write conclusion first. And the reason for it is we usually open with the introduction, and that's what we practice most. And usually, sometimes we run out of time, and conclusion needs to be very strong. And I believe your conclusion needs to bookend your speech with what you opened your speech with. You talked about that you like challenges. You like challenges, challenge yourself. You like challenge other. You like challenge, and you even challenge yourself by challenging God. So what your challenge is, if it's a humorous speech, maybe you're playing something else, something mischievous again. Did it teach you not to challenge yourself? So something about the challenges at the end. I didn't understand quite. You said it was 50 years ago? So maybe I misheard it, the whole thing. I thought I heard you said that 50 years ago you called God, and then I wasn't sure where the AI came from. I like how you were talking about people suffering, and I agree with Evelyn that idea with the props was extremely entertaining. My suggestion is, I think this is the case when it's nice to talk about yourself. I was wondering, were you immune from this suffering, or you suffered with everybody else's? Was it your experience as well, or were you just an observer? Were you happy when the God had this executive order and relieved everyone, so to speak? Or you were just very sad and were again thinking about your next challenge? Thank you so much. It was very enjoyable, 5 to 7 minutes. I'm happy I wasn't part of this experiment, but I'm looking forward to hearing maybe more of your speeches. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Coach Tatiana. Coach Arlie.
Yeah, thank you for a very different speech. I mean, I expect kind of potty humor from a junior high school boy, but from an elegant lady like yourself, it was a nice kind of surprise. Actually, again, most of my notes have been already mentioned. Let's see, what my main suggestion is, like with the tall tale, I think it's something where you want to spend as much as time in the beginning, at least, having it be plausible. So yeah, two things. Why is going to the bathroom too much a specific problem? So it's like, maybe set something up like you're working on a project and all of a sudden you have to run to the bathroom and then you're working some more, and then set that up a little bit. And then you could maybe begin by praying to God that it be changed, so that all of that is kind of reasonable. Then when he starts answering, then, okay, now it becomes a tall tale. And let's see, yeah, I agree with kind of making. I like the little prop thing, and if you can sort of make it about yourself, to agree with Tatiana, where the how should I say, it's like if it's affecting you, like all of a sudden it's an unintended consequence. Yes, one other little nit. You referred to God as Your Highness, and that's kind of more like earthly royalties. Maybe Your Holiness would be a more appropriate word for God. I mean, I have to say, I have never heard a speech like this at all, ever. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was trying to I think my goal is just to play on words, just recreation versus recreation. There's no hyphen there. So that's why at the beginning, I just introduce it, you just should be enjoying the gift of life in recreation. So that's why I introduced that early there. And then at the end, I would say no recreation, but just recreation, no hyphen, so.
Okay, thanks. Thank you all the coaches. Thank you, Doris. And now I would like to thank all the speakers to join us, all the role bearers, tech person Dan, timer Lena, to have this amazing flow for the entire session. And special thanks to all the coaches for their amazing evaluations, for all the speakers. It's a great learning, not just for the speakers, but for all of us, as I get to learn a lot of things, but just by hearing your suggestions on the other speeches. I would just like to know, how was your experience? How was your experience about this session?
Yeah, I didn't know you were going to pick me first, but anyways, so I really loved it. And not only the evaluations, I think some of the fantastic evaluations. I was taking notes throughout the way and was pondering upon things. So really good evaluations. Really, really love the points that you guys bring up, especially regarding the structure, regarding the presentation, everything. I really like the other speeches as well. Excellent speeches. Doris, your speech was fantastic, and so was everyone else's. So it was such a pleasure listening to all of you. And I got to hear so much, not only by evaluation of my speech, but by evaluators giving evaluation to other speeches, which was equally important and nice. Thank you. Back to you, Saloni.
Thank you, Sach.
I'd like me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Sach's comments. Really, the coaches, you're amazing. Like usually I'm nervous. I won't be able to focus on your event, but you really drew me in, with all these nuance and constructive feedback really help us. Many things like this, like I'm a scientist, I like new discoveries. So the things you pointed out, really, I would not dig that deeper. You really opened my mind. I did not miss every single, evaluation because of your feedback. Thank you. It's really eye-opening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendy. Pradeep, how was your overall feedback, experience being a listener here, being a part of this session?
So I loved both the speeches as well as the evaluation. The evaluation was top notch in terms of the quality. Just one feedback I would give is I'm not sure how the coaches felt. Having a round robin for the coaches would help rather than having 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That's just one feedback. My point was in the order of the coaches could have a rotation for each speaker.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Pradeep. Yeah, Dory, yes.
I think the coaches were wonderful, and they gave us very great evaluations as well as suggestions because of their experience. And all the other speeches are very good too. We can just listen to the speeches and then the evaluations from the coaches, how to improve them is very helpful. So not only that, we can learn from our own experience, we can also learn from observing, and I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much for all your assistance, all the functionaries, Toastmasters, Timer, and Tech Chair, and Abhijit for organizing this event. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone, really. This is amazing. Like your mind is engaged from the first minute to the last. So like everybody noted. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Abhijit, and thank you for all the functionaries. Really. I
Thank you.
Tell my members and try to help to promote this program if it's going to continue in the future.
Thank you, Wendy. Any suggestions, any feedback by our coaches, Evelyn? On the entire.
Yeah, as Pradeep said, it would have been nice to switch us around because poor Arnie would kind of say, well, everybody's already covered what I was thinking. And now I'm going to have to just be mean, poor guy. Also would have given me a little more time to think. Otherwise, I was scrambling trying to write my last minute notes. So yeah, switching it up a little bit for each speaker, that would have helped me as a coach or as an evaluator. Otherwise, it was enjoyable. Even I got to learn things. I appreciated hearing the other two evaluators, what were their take on what I had just listened to. So I learned as well.
Thank you, Evelyn. Any suggestions from Coach Arnie?
Oh, yeah, no,
Third.
great event. I appreciate it. Yeah, well, Tatiana and I are both in a club, Peninsula Pros, where we do round-robin evaluations at every meeting, and we do mix it up because for exactly the reason that that's being mentioned. And there we also have a rule that if a previous round-robin evaluator has said something, you're not allowed to repeat it. So but you can build on it. But yeah, no, it's I enjoyed every single speech. They were just fantastic. And I always learned something both from the speakers as well as the other coaches, Evelyn and Tatiana, they're both amazing. And thank you for putting this on.
Thank you, Arnie. Tatiana, any suggestions, any feedbacks from you?
I enjoyed this event. I really appreciate the opportunity to be the coach at this event, to listen to wonderful, accomplished, very talented speakers, and listen to other coaches' evaluations. That I always learn something new. I do support suggestion of rotating the order because depending, I think I was the most beneficial position mine because I still had something to do, but I had a little bit of time to get my thoughts together and build on somebody else's evaluation. So rotating this order would be helpful. And that's the only suggestion I have. Thank you so much, and thank you for organizing it. And
Thank you, Tatiana.
If I can make one more comment, and this is something that is what's beneficial about having multiple like when you give a speech at a club and you get one evaluation, what you're hearing is the opinion of that one evaluator. When you hear multiple evaluations, you'll often hear different perspectives. In other words, what one evaluator may have to say about it may not be, the be all and end all, and somebody else may have a completely opposite. It's kind of Newton's law of evaluators. For every evaluator, there's an equal and opposite evaluator.
Exactly, Arnie. Yeah. How was your experience then about the overall session?
I'm sorry, did you ask me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I thought that was an interesting suggestion about rotating the order of coaches. That hadn't occurred to me, but it was a good suggestion. I also would like to apologize. I could not figure out quickly enough how to grant someone the ability to share a screen. Fortunately, it looks like one of the other co-hosts figured it out. So thank you.
Thank you, then. Lena, how was your experience? Would you like to share some?
So I love this event. I was I was a speaker and I was first it was my first time, and I truly like all evaluations. It is really eye-opening and very helpful. Very knowledgeable judges are here. So I wanted to attend this event again. That's why I'm here. And yes, we learn a lot from observing, from listening to other speakers as well. So I am really thankful to Abhijit for including me in this event. And thank you, everybody. all speakers and especially evaluators. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your speeches, for sharing your time. Thank you so much for joining. And yes, Tatiana.
I just want to reinforce what Evelyn said. I'm sorry for interrupting. I think giving at least 1 minute for even the first coach to start talking before they start talking would be beneficial for everyone. Just even during the contest, evaluators have some time to prepare. So just look through the notes and see what you can talk about during 2 minutes would be helpful. I don't know if Evelyn would support this suggestion because she experienced it firsthand, but that would be helpful. And second suggestion, I cannot stop evaluating. So second suggestion would be to give us information about like speaker's name, the title of the speech, and maybe what the project is or the goal of the speech is. In chat would be helpful ahead of time when we start. It would also prime our minds. Thank you. Sorry.
Sure. Thanks, Tatiana. Okay, now. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and making this event a successful event. We can say we all got to learn a lot of things, and we will be improving because of all the evaluations, all the speeches. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. So with this, I think we are good to close it now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.